afternoon and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently listening to our video blog and podcast. It's a Friday. Hope you had a wonderful week and have managed to accomplish what you needed to do. This said, I kind of come to you today with a somewhat gloomy week that overcasts our country's social and political landscape. You know what? As a politician, or a former politician at least, I understand ideas, concepts, and visions are pretty, how would I put this? They're sensitive subjects, especially if people that listens to them are not familiar with them, or simply oppose them, or whatever it is that they don't agree with, that triggers their discontent and animosity towards the author of a particular concept, idea, or vision. That's, synonymous in politics, because throughout history, politics is an arena where differing views, ideas, narratives, concepts, vision, wisdom, religion, ethics, you name it, tends to clash among people groups. And that is basically because we're not all the same. We didn't grow up the same. Most of us have probably been exposed to various cultures, religions, school of thoughts, ideas, people groups, you name it. So we're not gonna be the same. All right, folks. And in a society the size of America, that's just a reality here. Okay, we're all different. We're all diverse people, and that's just the overall reality, okay, of our society. So, with that said, I'm here to tell you, as a former politician and as someone who grew up relatively near to political ideas and thoughts, in high school and college and even my adult life, I've, come across, both parties, Republicans and independents, Democrats, you name it. I've come across pretty much every school of political thought, even those of overseas political agenda from foreign governments. Okay, folks, and I'm just reflecting on these decision ideas as they pertain to politics, because people are going to be different. Okay, we're not going to come 100% in agreement with everyone. Okay, so some tend to gravitate toward a certain narrative, and others tend to repel from a certain narrative. That's just the reality of politics. Okay? So, let me segue into the events that took place just 2 days ago, where a young influencer, I call him young because I'm a little bit older than, Charlie Kirk. So, but you know, he's a 31-year-old influencer that have been one of those juggernauts in the Conservative Party. And he's a fairly influential, you know, young man amongst the, obviously, the same demographics of people as he is. College age people. Not just in the US, but even overseas. I've come across people from abroad that he's influenced and he's managed to connect with his conservative ideas. And for me, you know, I graduated from Liberty University, the same university that gave Charlie Kirk his honorary degree. I tend to agree to majority of his political ideas. Okay, even though I run as an independent, I identify with many of Charlie Kirk's, you know, overall attitude towards conservatism in America. And in a way, I guess that's a part of nationalism and, you know, Americanism. So I tend to identify with him because I believe that many of our values and principles as a country have been muddled and basically corrupted by the Democrat Party. Okay, you know, I've grown in I've been exposed to the Democrat ideologies as a kid. You know, growing up in a fairly Democrat city, you know, and liberal community. So I was raised to be a Democrat. Okay. And in many ways, I saw the party back then as, you know, somewhat connected to who I am, coming from an immigrant family. I'm a minority, obviously. Comes from a bilingual, you know, upbringing. So many of the ideas of the Democrat Party back then, and even its attitude towards the minority population, resonated with me as a young kid back in high school. So hold on for a second. Yeah, I'm currently doing my podcast. Your blog and the podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so look us up. It's called faceconomics TV on YouTube.
Wait, what's that?
It's faceconomics TV on YouTube. Say hello.
Hello. Hello, guys.
So, all right. Yeah, look us up. It's faceconomics TV. It's on YouTube. All right. Talk to you later. Anyway, what I was saying is that, you know, it resonated with me in terms of the ideology of the party and the overall vision towards, you know, diplomacy and, you know, protecting the rights of the marginalized population, supporting diversity, you know, things that would typically resonate for someone who comes from a family that isn't either white or black. Okay, so I basically decided to be a part of that circle. You know, I would go to Richmond, meet with a mixed bag of politicians that tend to be more Democrat than they are Republicans at that time. So I was kind of groomed to be a part of the Democrat, you know, elite, I guess you can say, amongst the high school teenage group in my high school. Okay, and when I graduated from high school, I wanted to go to a university that is quiet, you know, and away from partying and away from all the crazy things that college kids do. So I decided to go to Liberty University, which at that time I had no idea was even a part of the Christian Coalition, and whose chancellor was Dr. Jerry Falwell. You know, I applied to several universities. I applied to Yale, Harvard, you know, the typical Ivy League university, until I realized I can't really afford them. And then, you know, Liberty tends to be somewhat similar in terms of, I guess, quality of not quite education, but the quality of being able to grow one's character. And I'm emphasizing on character, not academics, okay? And so I got a letter from Liberty University stating that I had been accepted, and that a part of my curriculum would entail having to study in Israel, Jerusalem, as a prerequisite for our core classes. So I did my time to engage with diplomacy and geopolitics in Israel, as well as learning about the Old and New Testament, biblical studies. Why am I telling you this? Because I'm, as I mentioned, I started off as a pro-Democrat, liberal high school student. And then after I graduated from high school, I basically jumped with both feet into a completely very different political party, whose chancellor was one of the big wigs within the Christian Coalition. I actually was a violinist. I played my fiddle, my violin, for Dr. Jerry Falwell's orchestra, Thomas Rowe Baptist. Okay, so, and he would used to bring in a lot of these well-known Republican politicians to come and speak to us. Anyway, so that has been my political exposure throughout my life up into college. And then after graduating from college, I moved up to Washington, D.C. and worked for, you know, various consulting firms like Northrop Grumman and Booz Allen Hamilton, and got exposed to Washington, D.C. politics. I mean, it was pretty hardcore politics when I was up in Washington at that time. So it wasn't just, you know, you volunteer and participate to a party's, you know, activity. You're actually within the party as someone who would have, you know, have become a politician yourself in the future. That's how it was, how intense it was when you get involved in politics in Washington, D.C. Because they pull you in, and it's pretty difficult to, you know, get back out. So with that said, folks, after I moved up to Washington, D.C., I signed up to join the U.S. Peace Corps. The first application I put in, I was supposed to go to Ukraine. They were going to post me somewhere outside of Kiev, the capital. So I requested a deferment because I had just started my new job, and which, you know, the U.S. Peace Corps allowed me to do. And a year later, I got another invitation saying that get ready and head on out to Romania. And at that time, Romania was in transition after they've ascended into the European Union in 2007. I moved to Romania in 2008, so a lot of their economic and financial reshuffling was happening, and the government is becoming more in tune with the prerequisites and checks and balance of the European Union system. You know, they have verification mechanism that it was endorsed to them that they have to follow. So why am I telling you all this? Because throughout my time in US and foreign politics, I've seen a lot of changes in wisdom, in vision, in attitude, in influence, and overall goals, objectives, you name it, mission of these politicians. Because politicians are human. They will change their minds just like everybody else. And depending who it is the most vocal, the most visible, and the most powerful in the party, then the party will gravitate to their narrative. Okay, folks? So this kind of brings me back to what happened last, was it Wednesday? To Charlie Kirk, a young guy who was assassinated for speaking his mind. Okay, and most of what he does is he goes to universities and try to connect with the younger population from both sides, liberal and conservative. And he would challenge them, yes, and they would challenge him. And they would do their debates. It's a typical meeting of the minds type of venue. So remember, it's the meeting of the minds. It's not a monologue. So Charlie Kirk, in my opinion, has been fairly balanced. Okay, granted, he doesn't have the same background as I've had within my personal life and professional life. Okay, he's younger and a little bit more, how would I put this? He tends to get aggressive, okay, with his politics. But that's okay, he's young, he's just like everybody else. But with that said, I do not believe, not even an ounce of my being, that he deserved to be assassinated in front of his wife and 2 infant children. This really irks me to my core because it was videotaped, it was live streamed, and it was recorded, and the whole world saw his blood splashing out of it. Okay, folks, that's the brutality of it all. On top of that, which is extremely problematic too, is that right after he died, the career politicians started spitting out their political narrative and basically try to piggyback off of what was happening. You know, the career politicians never ever misses out on an opportunity to opine on tragedies that they themselves created. Okay, folks, they want their name out there, so they are trying to piggyback off of the death of a young influencer. All right, folks, which is very, very evil in my opinion, and just unclassy at all. It's just strange that we have politicians, career politicians in America that operate that way. So anyway, so I believe that Charlie Kirk provides a balance, and I wasn't a fan of his early on because I know how he tends to be with younger liberals and how it could be heated at times when he's talking to the opposing party. But I believe, based off of some of his statements, that he tries to be balanced and respectful, and that's pretty rare, especially among the younger political activists. He doesn't really use profanity as much as others, and even on his podcasts and video blogs, he's tried to be somewhat of an honest, this is my point of view type of person. He does provide a disclaimer. He tells people, this is how I feel and this is how I see things. So with that said, folks, now that he's dead, I don't know if what had taken place prove that we as a society have learned from the past. It seems as if we're back to where everything was. And this takes me back to my time as a Peace Corps volunteer. Okay, the Peace Corps as an agency was developed by JFK, Mr. Kennedy, who was assassinated, and so was his younger brother. Okay, and when I was in Romania serving in the Peace Corps, I've had to explain to the local population what the Peace Corps is supposed to be. It's supposed to serve as a diplomatic, goodwill, and economic development arm of the U.S. Diplomatic mission, basically. And so how is this tragedy with Mr. Kirk going to be seen, and how is it influence the hearts and minds of the world population, not just in the US but abroad? Have we created credibility towards our neighbors, allies, that looks at American democracy and the rule of law and freedom of speech as somewhat shaky and unstable? And the liberals doesn't realize that the world is watching, and for them to celebrate such heinous attack, so unprovoked and just extremely uncalled for, it's definitely not going to build credibility around the world. for America. Okay. And so that's something that I wanted to point out amidst all of this confusion and headbanging going on in our political system. Okay, folks, when I was running for office, I didn't even cover my my campaign. None of the local and national news covered my campaign, even though I was talking about the potential conflict between Russia and Ukraine because of the pandemic, how things could escalate and evolve, things that I've seen in the US in terms of our, political narrative. None of that was covered by the local news. And up until just recently, when I was doing my interview with Lee Camp on his show, he mentioned that you got to have, some serious money to get, the news organizations to even cover your campaign and narrative, which I didn't have any money. I was a no-name politician, so that's that. I didn't get any coverage. What I was disappointed about, though, is I didn't get the chance to debate, which I was hoping it will happen, but I wasn't invited to any of the debates. So, oh look, there's a turtle here. Yep, one turtle there, swimming towards me. So, yeah, anyway, that was the situation. I didn't get to debate my opponent, so my name wasn't published, unfortunately, and ended up having to go in as a write-in candidate. Anyway, oh look, there's a baseball game this evening. So, where was I? Yeah, so our diplomatic and how we're seen by the world has been basically affected by this tragedy, this unprovoked, unnecessary, violence that happened to Charlie Kirk and his family. All right, folks. As I was saying, I feel that he's a fairly balanced individual as he analyzed social and political subjects in our country. Okay, and this is coming from someone who started off within the Democratic Party. I was part of the party for many years. Then I switched to the Republicans and then run as an independent. So I've been exposed to virtually all party systems, attitudes, schools of thought systems. So yeah, there's a game here. It looks like it's a serious game. It's a big crowd here. But so I just want to kind of point out the stupidity that the mainstream media and certain school of thoughts in politics are trying to spin the narrative of confusion. I don't care what background you're from or with whatever party you belong to. You definitely need to understand violence is violence, simple as fact. If you try to condone, what's going on and what's taking place to Charlie Kirk, I don't care what he was saying. It doesn't really matter whatever it is he's saying, because you don't necessarily have to listen to him. You don't have to like him. You don't have to follow him. You just move on with your life. you don't attack people because, they're sharing their opinions. Okay, it's their freedom to share their opinion, and it's their freedom to speak. As far as in a democratic society, at least. So, yeah, that's my 10 cents as far as what the media and some people that tends to glorify, violence have been saying. Like I was pointing out, I grew up in a community that is fairly diverse. You see all these people from all backgrounds, walks of life. Our community is fairly diverse, okay? And for us to cherry pick what type of violence is good and what's not, then it's really, disingenuous in many ways. So yeah, folks, I just wanted to reflect on the life and contribution to the American society of Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm not here trying to make you guys like him or change your opinion of him. I'm sharing my observation as someone from a very different background as he is. Okay, both socially, ethnically, race-wise, education-wise. I'm different as Charlie, but I understand and I tend to respect his way of balancing social and political analysis through his narrative. All right, folks. So yeah, so today they managed to catch the perpetrator, a young man, 22-year-old guy, okay, folks, whose life is ahead of him. He's got tons to live for, but he decided to piss that all away. He basically snuffed out the life of someone that will never connect with him, mentally, physically, and even communicate with him unless he shows up to one of his, Charlie's shows or events. He doesn't have to interact with him. This 22-year-old guy, decided to kill someone over their opinion that he doesn't have to listen to, doesn't have to believe in anything that Charlie Kirk was saying, or even listen and follow him. But he decided, okay, that one day he's going to try to target him. I still don't understand why, okay? And now he's facing the death penalty. Okay, is that something that was worth to do as a 22-year-old guy who's about to go to college? I mean, it's still baffling to me to even try to figure out why he's decided to kill someone. By the way, we're here at the skateboard park. This used to be a wooden skateboard park when I was younger, but now everything's concrete. So you can see, kids enjoying skateboarding and all that stuff. All right, that's ones that connected. So anyway, I actually used to do all that stuff, but I never did the ramps or any of this the pools. But I did ride a skateboard at one point in my life when I was a teenager. Anyway, I had a good time as a teenager, put it that way. And I hope that guy, 22-year-old guy, thought about his actions before he was gonna just one day get up on that roof and shoot at someone. Really is irrelevant to him. You know, he doesn't have to interact with Charlie Kirk. He didn't have to listen to Charlie Kirk. Anyway, yeah, I feel sorry for both of them, actually, because now I'm at my age where, you know, I pretty much got to do a good portion of the things that I set out to do for myself. Okay, I got to serve in the US Peace Corps, work in the government, do, you know, what I wanted to do. So I feel bad that these guys will now have to end that, you know, story in their lives. And unfortunately, Charlie's story was ended for him. Okay, folks. So, yeah, I just kind of want to comment and reflect on what's going on in America with our political landscape and system and narrative and agenda. Okay, folks, we're spiraling down out of control. And I'm not just saying this because of this one-off event. I mean, it's a big tragedy, but I think this has been happening even, you know, during the attempted assassination of Mr. Donald Trump twice. Okay, so it's like we never learned from previous mistakes. Okay, folks, it's like we're stuck on stupid almost. And it pains me to say this, but it seems as if our attitude towards the betterment of society and betterment of America is always getting stalled. There's people that keeps taking us back to where we were. Now, you know, I hear the narrative of make America great again. I narrative actually, but let's make America great now. Let's make America in the future. And you know, that's much more important to me as someone who has been influenced by both sides of political, you know, narrative to create a strategy that makes America great in the future. And in all, you know, reality, and I want to give, you know, credit to where credit is due. I believe that Trump administration is pushing towards making America great towards the future by revisiting the past with his narrative and the overall strategy. It just, I think, certain contents of the Make America Great Again narrative would only resonate for those who have been experiencing America's greatness, prosperity, and overall better quality of life at that time that they can remember. But, you know, obviously we still have a lot of underprivileged, marginalized, poor, uneducated population that simply does not see that kind of promise and opportunity, that a narrative to bring back greatness that was only afforded to a few Americans would be of value to them. All right, folks. So yeah, anyway, I just thought I reflect on the overall U.S. political condition. Because, you know, for example, I was on my social media platform just last night, and I was listening to some politicians, from Europe, and they were, basically opining on Charlie Kirk's death. Some of them I can understand, some I wasn't able to understand fully, but I think the resonating message behind what they were talking about is, where is America now pertaining to freedom of speech and our democratic process, okay, and our overall attitude towards gun violence. So we are being watched on a regular basis by the world. Sometimes we're, unfairly judged, and sometimes, we deserve the verdict. But most of the time, it's all opinion, okay? We're definitely becoming better as a society, but we're not where we need to be as what we had intended to be, 30, 40 years ago. It's like we take, one step forward and 3 steps backwards. It's been the dance of the last couple of decades in America. So while the Trump administration is able to slow down the downhill spiral of our social decline and political decline, I think we need to look upon ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, have we contributed to the betterment of America, okay, versus who's making America great again? No, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I'm not happy and satisfied with what the Trump administration is doing. I think in the last, 11 administration at least, 11, okay, I said 11, 11 administration, actually, by far, this administration is better than the first Trump administration, and they actually have make America, somewhat great again. With this said, folks, thanks for joining me on my brisk walk and my, somewhat of a conversation regarding how, Charlie Kirk was basically mistreated by our country. Okay, I feel that everyone, regardless of your political party, should honor his wisdom and talent, skills to bring us to a position of commonality rather than divisiveness. I know some people said that he was, very polarizing, but I didn't hear that, see that in his talks and podcasts. He is pretty energetic, and he is a young guy, so he tends to be, a little bit angsty, and he wants to pounce on people at times, but he does it respectfully, okay? And it's rare to come across young people like that in today's American politics, where they're not, acting like they're Wolverines and trying to slash everybody's, neck, okay? So, yeah, I want you guys to please, consider praying and lifting up the Kirk's family and friends and his supporters, and reflect on what he tried to do with his life, his accomplishments, and the things that he tried to basically preserve American values. Okay. And I was just telling you, I come from a very liberal, somewhat marginalized upbringing, so I understand why he acted and operated the way he did, because he truly loved our country, and so do I. But unfortunately, we're at the point where, when you want to do good in this world, those haters and evildoers and the ones that are violent tends to try to get an upper hand against you. All right, folks. With this said, thank you so much for joining me on this Friday, and I appreciate you walking with me and letting me share my thoughts and ideas with you. And I'd like to ask for your consideration to please lift up the Kirk family in your thoughts and prayers in this very, very difficult time in their lives. Thank you so much. Take care.